guys, how you all doing? This is NKD Smart View. So right about today, we'll be going on to the insights and analysis of Bitcoin, knowing where we currently are, knowing where we're heading, and where we could actually be in some few weeks. Now, looking into this now, we'll be going through some few steps and some few approaches towards knowing what could actually be happening in Bitcoin in coming days. Now, the first is going to be the BTC curve. Now, this BTC curve is much more like, as we have our trendline support and all, it actually goes like a form of support. Now, tracing down from this, we could actually see the bottom of the previous cycle, which we had sometime in November 2022 when Bitcoin bottomed around $15,500 zone. Now, going on from there, we would actually see something. Before the $15,000, we had what? A higher low. Following the higher low, we had what? A lower low, and this was the lowest for the cycle. Now, you know that we have what we call the bull's run, which is a 4-year cycle. 3 years market going all the way to the upside, then a single year market will be going all the way to the downside. So this was the bottom of the previous cycle, which we had the halving in the year 2020. We had the top in 2021 and the bottom in 2022. Following up with that, we had a new cycle which has actually continued all the way from late 2022, 2023, 2024, and currently it is still running as much as 2025 and is likely going to be topping very soon. So this information is very vital. I've stated it, and it should be noted, the bull cycle, much more than just being a rinse and repeat cycle, as investors call it, or as they see it as, is much more absolute, because over the years it has played out the same way. You will see 3 years to the upside, 1 year to the downside. It has actually what kept on repeating. So it's much more like a norm, something that we await, something we look forward and plan towards. So it's much more like a norm at this stage. In that given sense, now following on with the Bitcoin curve, we have this. At this given stage, we had what? The bottom right about here. Following that, we had what? Another bottom here, which was a form of support using the curve. Following that, we had what? Another bottom here using the curve. And following that, we had what? Another bottom. So in that sense now, the curve has actually acted like a point of support at this zone here, starting from the higher low to a lower low to a higher low, another higher low, currently another higher low. So there have been a continuity in this curve giving support to the price range. Hence, we can actually put it to be that at the stage of formation, be it a higher low or be it a lower low, which in this case now is not possible, because at every given stage, Bitcoin is what? Making a low with a higher low, another higher low. So expectation is the fact that up until the peak of this cycle, we are not expecting a low that will go below this curve. Hence, from the current price and date range, we are currently on the date 31st of August 2025. The lowest that this particular asset called Bitcoin can go as of today's date using the price curve is what? The price range of $90,860. So that means by expectation, as long as our price curve remains the same and it is not what broken below by order of what we have seen over the past few years, we cannot get a price range what below $90,807 or so, as of today being what 31st of August 2025. So take that and put that what at the back of your mind. Now, following up with that, now we have the second phase, which is what? The fair value gap. Now, speaking on the fair value gap, we have two particular zones here. Now, according to the structure of a fair value gap, we have what we call the premium and the discount fair value gap. Now, the fair value gap, which is located at the higher point during price rally, is called what? The premium, while the lower is usually what? Called the discount. Now, a few months ago, we saw Bitcoin fall all the way as low as $74,400. That was earlier in the year, which was April 2025. Following that, we've been on a rally all the way to the upside. Now, looking at this now, before then, we had what? A previous low according to what? Our price curve, which was a low of 49,570 as of August 2024, followed by a particular what? Low, once again, a higher low at the price zone of what? $52,000 or around $52,000, which was much more of price rejecting or reacting of the support level. Following up with that, we had the price go as high as what? $109,900. That was earlier when in 2025. Following that, we had what? A dump all the way down to $74,000 within the next 3 months following from that. And after that, we what? Got this particular move, a massive move all the way to the upside. But before that, from the bottom here, which we had what? The 50 or $49,000 zone, we had what? A surge to the upside. Following up with that, we had also these two fair value gaps here. The first being the what? Premium, second being the discount. Now we had price do this. Simply go all the way below the discount, retraced all the way to the top, went below and ranged in between that zone. Ranged in between what? The two and a little bit out of the discount premium fair value gap. And after some few weeks, we got price what? Finally reject on the price curve and also at the top of the premium fair value gap. So very important to note that the what? Premium fair value gap was what? Broken out of, and it what? Went as low as the discount. In this sense now, we had price touch or bound or rebound out of what? The price curve. And also it got to top the discount fair value gap. Did not mitigate it, it just what? Tapped on it and immediately bounced off, giving us this what? Massive surge till date. Now following up with that, this right here was a previous fair value gap. We'll be talking about that today, but rather we'll be looking into the current fair value gap which we have right here. Now this current fair value gap, we have what? The first here being the premium fair value gap, then we have also the discount fair value gap. Looking at this now, the premium fair value gap went into a range from this particular zone here to here. So this is his range here. And what we have what? The next range around here. Now, if you can look at the price, we currently have price trading around this zone. That means most definitely to an extent, we've gotten what? Price fall all the way below here and below here. But price now is not able to accommodate such price range again. Hence, the discount fair value gap is likely not to be taken out. The next most probable opportunity in the market is for what? The premium fair value gap, which ranges between the price zone of $98,000 and as high as what? $100,000. In this sense now, except if the market could likely have a massive dump, we're talking about something as much as this. That is the only way we can get to take out the discount fair value gap and as well respect our price curve. Else we would be breaking below the price curve, because today being what? The 31st of August, we are having a price range of, let's see that, we're having a price range of 91,000, or let's say a maximum of $91,000. So except if we're able to achieve such a tremendous dump, that means for the price curve to be obeyed in line with the fair value gap, we have to what? Dump as much as a 91k in the next few hours, which is likely not possible, or rationally it won't happen. So in that given sense now, our target should be much more of the premium fair value gap here, which is what? Between the price range of what? This zone here. And this zone ranges between 97, 98,000 and as high as what? $100,000. So looking at this now, this is much more likely to happen. Already we've gotten the price zone take out this area before. It could actually go what? In a form like this and what? Get to take it out again. So that is something to keep in mind. Hence, the chances of BTC dumping to a certain level could be around the time zone also. This is what? 27th of October to what? 11th of November. Now, my expectation as a trader on my own end is the fact that around this set period, which is what? 27th October to 9th of November, we should have actually topped for this bull cycle. So I'm not expecting Bitcoin to do something like this for the next few weeks. Rather, I'm expecting what? Worst case scenario, we do something like this in a massive downpour. Hence, we are not going to interact with this curve as we speak. If you look at previous case scenarios, we have periods whereby what? Price what? Went here went all the way to the upside, did not get to interact with what? The price curve, but we had a decent push to the upside. So the fact that we're not interacting with the price curve at this zone now does not mean that there is any issue with our price, or does not mean that Bitcoin will not do well. Bitcoin could still at any given stage within the next 2 weeks get here, rebound it off, and we get a newer high. So take note of that. But one major thing, as I've stated, I am paying absolute respect to the price curve. I am paying absolute respect to the price curve. In that sense, now I'm not expecting Bitcoin to hit anywhere lower than what? The current price of $92,000. And that can only be possible if Bitcoin can fall massively within the next 24 to 48 hours. Else, we will be targeting much more of what? The premium fair value gap. It could actually do somewhere a little bit below, but there is nowhere that it is actually stated that Bitcoin must interact with this curve before it can what? Rebound and start a journey towards a new high. So keep that in mind. Hence, we've actually spoken now of the interaction and what? Price action, possible price action, if we look into and consider relationship between the curve and what? Our fair value gaps. Moving forward now, let's look into what we call the bearish divergence. Now, a divergence can be bullish, can be bearish. In the sense of a bullish divergence, you have what? Price getting you what? Low and a lower low, while your RSI gets you a low and a higher low. But in this case, we had ourselves a few days ago, exactly on what? The 14th of August. Exactly on the 14th of August, we got ourselves what? This price range on Bitcoin, giving us what? A higher high in price and what? A lower high in what? The RSI. So we should look at it in this way. Sorry about that. So a higher high in price and a what? A lower high in RSI. Hence a bearish divergence. Now, a bearish divergence simply gets to fill out in two possible ways. First case is a what? Downtrend, a decisive downtrend, and the second way is what? A bit of consolidation. So in this phase now, we have seen ourselves gotten through a good range to the downside. As you can see, we had what? The divergence here a few days ago. Following up with that, we've had price gone all the way to the downside, and we could still actually get to continue all the way to the downside. In that given sense now, let's look at where we currently are and where we could actually what? Be. So looking at this, our divergence is already in play. The bearish divergence is in play. We had what? A high and a higher high on the price, but a high and a lower high on the what? Divergence on RSI. Hence, a bearish price movement. And for the past few days, it has actually been doing absolutely well, because BTC have gone all the way from 124K and as low as $107,000 zone. So very well, the divergence is in play, and it's still set to continue up until invalidated. Now, moving further, let's speak about our trend line, our ascending trend line, which acted as a point of support or a 4-month support. Now, this particular trend line started after BTC got what? A bottom here, the price zone of 74,400 4 months ago. Following up with that, we had what? A decisive uptrend up until what? We got it broken below. Now, in the case of Bitcoin, it has broken below its 4-month trend line. Other cases like Ethereum is very, very far off its 4-month trend line. Solana, the same, is quite a little bit far off its 4-month trend line. What do I mean by that? We are speaking about what? The period of April 2025. If you check out the charts of Ethereum and Solana, you'll find out that this particular trend line that was created during that period has not been broken below. Only Bitcoin has broken below, and this should be in line with the Bitcoin dominance planning to plummet. Bitcoin dominance has actually been on a sword all through this cycle, all through this season. And in a short time, we should see the peak of the alt season. And for that to happen, Bitcoin needs to underperform. Hence, altcoins would perform more than Bitcoin. So in that sense, now a few days back, we saw the BTC price go below what? The 4-month support, flipping it over from a support now to a resistance. And following up with that, we've been what? On a downtrend. Now there is a continuation to the downtrend in this given sense. Though we would have some short-term pullbacks, some short-term reversals, downtrend, uptrends, and what? A major trend at a given stage. But for the very given time, we have what? A range in the BTC price, as we have what? A falling wedge. or a channel, depending on how you get to trace it out. So we have it is in a confined state that we are trending downwards. So following up with this now, there is continuation to the system, and BTC could likely keep on moving all the way to the downside, creating lows and highs and lows and highs. So keep that in mind, that BTC 4-month support has actually been broken a few days back and flipped into a zone of resistance. Hence, our 4-month support has now become a zone of resistance. A little bit further, let's look into the support zones that we currently have on Bitcoin. Now, our descending support zone, which is our descending line right about here, we have BTC price on a range to the downside. So we have a price movement of this, giving us this formation with lower lows. And in this given sense, now to a very good extent, there's an expectation of Bitcoin to get to interact with this zone. This is much more like a point of intersection between the downwards and the upwards trend line. So this particular price range now is sitting around where 105.8 to 106,000. Hence, in that particular situation, it is expected that Bitcoin should be getting to take out the price zone of 106,000. Though it might not be absolute, and we might actually see a rejection, and we might not get to fill out here completely, but still be open to the possibilities that Bitcoin could get to fill out this before going all the way to the upside for a short-term recovery. So the price range of 106k thereabout is still open to the market, and once we start seeing price break below this low, the previous low of $107,300, then most likely we are looking in for a price range of $106,000 in Bitcoin price. So there are levels of invalidation for this, as we also have our short-term buyers, but we won't be talking about that in this video. But keep in mind that on the short term, we are open to as much as 106,000 to the downside on Bitcoin price, because we have our support here with an intersection at this particular zone right now. So leaving out the descending trend line support, let's talk about the ascending trend line support. Now, the ascending trend line support gets to hold around this range here. This was a support zone, another support zone, yet to interact at this zone. So interacting at this zone now, we might get price here, giving us a kind of rejection of this zone. But ultimately, at a very given stage, we are expected to fall below here before we can start talking about chances of a new high, which is price getting a newer high above this price range. Hence, there's likely a chance that in the coming days we would see Bitcoin, if not doing this, then doing something like this directly. But at a very given stage, we should have here become a flip zone, because this will drop all the way lower and go all the way to the downside. So with continuation, we look into that and we know how to go about it. But for now, we follow the market as it goes and look for invalidation. So as I stated, invalidation towards a short-term pump comes when market breaks below this particular low here, which is at 107,300. We're looking for market to do something like this, then likely reverse to the upside with its target, or already we have bottom here. As you know, market must not always hit its exact targets. We can have a rejection of a zone only to retrace and later find support later on, still on the ascending trend line. Hence, we speak about something like this now. We had support here, support here. Instead of market getting to do this, could actually get to do this. So you understand, coming back here later on to still retest here. So it does not have to take this price out for you to interact with the trend line. You can always ignore for the short term, only to return later and interact with it. So have that in mind. Now, moving on to the next parameters, we can look in now at the lower time frame, which is the 4 hours right now, to find out something. Now, currently BTC is confined into two particular patterns. The first being a descending channel, and also a descending broadening wedge. So in that sense, now we have the first being a descending channel, where Bitcoin is ranging inside the channel. But one thing we should find out is the fact that now Bitcoin is currently getting series of highs. That is a low, another low. But rather than getting to interact strictly with the trend line here, we are interacting off the trend line. Hence, we are getting highs and formation of highs, though this is a a low here, another low here, but on the verge of a breakdown and a collapse, you can see that what we are doing contrary to that, because we are having price what range away from what the lower section of this channel. Hence, we are having much more of a bullish attribute currently in the market. And following up with that, now we also have what our broadening descending wedge, which is what this formation. Now, in that given sense, now we can say that we are looking in for something very shortly, and that is what the formation of a wedge more than a channel. What that means is the fact that in a short time we can get price what inevitably get to the top of this channel, possibly consolidate around it, break out, retest, flip it, and finally what give us a target. Hence, we have taken out 3 zones in the broadening descending wedge. One here, and another. Hence, something like this price movement here with a target of around the $114,000. So that is the expectation now. Hence, we are getting ourselves what? A low here, lower low, but rather than what? Another newer low, or such, we will have ourselves what? A higher low, and finally a breakout and a target at $114,000. So for a neat insight into the wedge, we look at something like this. So this is it right now. We are forming what? The wedge right about now. And unlike a case scenario of what? Getting newer lows, we have ourselves what? This particular case scenario here. Forming what? All the way here. And after that, we can see a setup that can actually what? Give us a continuation to the upside, or $106,000 as stated in the earlier period of the video, then all the way to the upside. So 2 case scenario right about now in Bitcoin chart. Either we continue all the way to the downside here, get here as a bottom, and what? Move all the way to the top, or we strictly just follow our current bias and what? Move all the way to the top. So 2 case scenario right now on Bitcoin on the short term. And this can actually be facilitated by the next step which we will look in, which is what? The divergence. Now, speaking about the divergence, as I stated earlier in the video, we have what? The bullish divergence, and we also have what? The bearish divergence. In this case scenario now, we are looking in at a bullish divergence rather. So sorry for that, at a bullish divergence. Now, a bullish divergence is when you have what? A high ascending and continuity of highs in the price of an asset, in the RSI, and what? Lows in the price. Hence, whilst the RSI is going all the way to the upside, creating what? A high, a higher high, another higher high, or a low, a higher low, and a lower low. In this case now, we're talking about what? A bullish divergence. Hence, we're talking about a low, another low, and what? Another low, but in series of what? Higher lows. Why the price will what? Go in series of what? Lower lows. We have what we call a divergence. And at a very given stage, a divergence must always bring about what? A trend. In this given sense now, market will continue with something like this, making sure that it's what? Still trading above each and every single one of these low. Why price could what? Do something like this. Hence, in a short while, we could see BTC go for a target of 106K, while our divergence will still remain, because what will happen on the RSI is simple. It what? Gets all the way to the downside, takes out this zone, and we see a massive trend on both RSI and the price. So right now we're moving in what? With a divergence. 2 possibilities are in the market right now. Either we complete the divergence by going all the way to the downside, taking out the 106K, or a little bit below 106K, whilst our what? RSI still remains valid by not breaking below and invalidating the divergence. Divergence can always be redrawn. It can always what? Change its form. But as long as we are not invalidating, it is still very much valid, and at a given stage, it will play out. So what is happening right now is the fact that Bitcoin is currently going through a 4 hours bullish divergence, and in a short while we would have what? It play out towards the upside. Most definitely there must be recovery, because as you can see right now, we are trading so much at the what? Zone which is considered what? Oversold. Though not extremely oversold, but it is what? Ranging at the oversold, and in a short while we could have what? A breakout to the upside, and what? A continuity, thereby giving us what? A price target of $114,000 in Bitcoin price, because at any given stage we must have what? A breakout. Currently in the market, we are seeing what is in the form of what? A symmetrical triangle in the 4 hours RSI. And a symmetrical triangle must always have what? A breakout price. And a breakout price at this given stage, either we see the price massively dump to the downside or what? Go to the upside after what? A breakout. But at this given stage now, with insight, I have what? More beliefs that this particular symmetrical triangle will do much more what? Of a breakout to the upside than falling to the downside to deeply oversold regions. So that is what we can actually look in at the market now. And moving further, let's go over now to what? The 1 day and also the 1 month RSI. I have some things I want to point on the 1 week and 1 month. Now, on the 1 week RSI, we have what? This particular setup here. Now, this is the 1 week RSI. We have what? These zones here. These zones are much more zones of support. Then we have what? These zones of resistance. Now, let's liken this with what is happening on its price chart. Now, looking at this now, we had what? This particular zone here as a high in price. Then we have what we call the what? Bearish divergence as stated. You had the price here. Then you had what? A higher high. Going below, you had what? RSI still dropping, hence continuity of the bearish divergence, but what? A newer high in price. And you had what? A low here, another low here, a lower low in RSI, another higher low in price. And we're expecting what? A higher low in price, whilst we're expecting what? A lower low in RSI. Hence, in a short while, the RSI getting to bottom right about here, despite what will be happening on the BTC curve right here, will tell us if we've actually bottomed and when we've bottomed. So whatever I'm doing, I'm keeping in mind that whenever Bitcoin RSI gets to interact with what? This zone right here, that should be what and where we would call a bottom in our price. Hence, after that, we can get what? A rejection of this support and what? Likely another high, creating what? A new high. As you can see, every single one of the resistance zone has always what? Giving us a new high. So BTC rejecting of this zone could actually what? Trigger a new high. So a lower high in RSI, but what? A higher high in price at the zone of 140,000 or above that. So this is what is currently happening on the weekly time frame, but on the monthly time frame, we step it up to what? Something higher. So let's check that out. Now on the monthly time frame, we can see this now. Now this has actually been the top of every single cycle up to date. This right here, as you can see, is what? 2013. So this was the cycle of 2012 halving. This was the next following it, which is what? The 2017 top, which was what? The 2016 halving cycle. This was the 2021 top, which was the 2020 halving cycle. And currently, we've not seen any top here now. Bringing out a trend line, we can simply see something of this nature right about here. So bringing out your trend line, let's get this done like this. So getting this done this way, you'll find out something. And that is simply the fact that up to date, BTC has not reached what? The overbought zone. In every single other year, we saw this zone here as an overbought and the peak of the cycle. This zone here, overbought and peak of the cycle. But we've not seen that overbought conditions for this year. Hence, there is still room to the upside on the 1 month time frame, and Bitcoin what could just take itself what on a journey towards a newer high. Hence, before we start talking about what the creation of what a zone that is what overbought, and in that given sense now, every single high also have its low. What do I mean by that? This is also what the low of a cycle, the low of another cycle around the range, the low and the low. So when you look at this now, this was what the low, and it was represented the low of this cycle, a low here, and it represented the low of the cycle. Hence, Bitcoin doing a setup like this. A second on that. So Bitcoin doing a setup like this could actually what give us insight to where we could bottom as of 2026 after this bulls run is over in 2025, and what the target area for Bitcoin bottom in 2026. So right about now on the 1 month time frame, we've not seen overbought conditions, and we can still go all the way to the upside before what targeting downside in coming weeks. So this will be it on Bitcoin Insight on the long time frame, what we should be expecting, and we follow this duly, and in the next coming days we would know where we get from here. Thank you, and this is NKD TRADEZONE.